We're all traumatized. Now what? That's probably not the opening you expected from a horse podcast, but stay with me because someone at Happy Horse Camp recently asked me, what trauma lens do you work from? I thought that question needed a deeper answer than I was, and I thought that question needed a deeper answer than I was able to give in that moment. I want to first start by saying that I don't think trauma is the whole story for anyone or any horse. Life leaves marks on all of us. The question isn't whether those marks exist. The question is, how do we learn to thrive? Welcome, friends and fellow horse fiends. I'm Anna Fox of Equus Enlightened, and this is the Thinking Horse and Rider, the podcast dedicated to training you to become the best possible partner for your horse. Here, we explore the science and soul of horsemanship. We dive into equine behavior, the psychology of partnership, and compassionate training methods that help you become a thinking rider who creates a thinking horse. Because when you understand how your horse's mind works and show up with empathy and presence, everything gets easier and a whole lot more fun. My goal is to keep riding easy and fun for everyone, while helping you deepen your connection, find more flow, and maybe even create your own unicorn along the way. Whether you're working on dressage movements or just trying to understand why your horse did that thing they did, we'll explore the research, the real talk, and the small shifts that make a big difference in and out of the saddle. So grab your boots, take a deep breath. What are you waiting for? Come ride with me. I am not so freshly off my weekend at the Happy Horse Camp. It was so hot the first 2 days, and everyone was so amazing at dealing with the heat and adjusting our schedules. Of course, Shining River Ranch in North Carolina is just beautiful all the time, but they were so great at accommodating us and keeping everything moving. It was a beautiful experience, and we had beautiful weather the last day. I was still exhausted though when I got home. Someone asked me during the camp, what trauma lens do you work from? And I immediately thought, well, I don't really know. But it's not that I don't know, it's just that I don't pick one because I don't believe that any lens, technique, system is the answer for any one or any one horse. People and horses are all individuals, and we should all be treated as such. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't think trauma matters, because it does, but it's our tendency to dwell on the problems we think trauma causes that I think really cause all the problems. I started my answer at the camp with this same story of growing up with my dad being a naval aviator. That can be a very dangerous profession. It was definitely something that we were aware of, but it was not something that was dwelled upon. And I don't know if that's because my mom grew up with a dad who was a firefighter. Maybe her mom instilled the same awareness without creating a story and making a judgment that, this job is going to be a death sentence. And that sounds pretty like crazy radical, I guess. But I do know people who feel that way. I worked in public safety. I'm married to someone who works in public safety. And I know that members of his own family have a really hard time with him being a firefighter. And I always thought it was so funny because I just don't dwell on what people choose to do with their careers, right? People want to do what they want to do. I guess growing up, we always had an awareness of risk and consequence, but not catastrophizing, right? Nobody denied the danger, but nobody organized our life around it either. I also used to do a podcast called 911 Delta Tether for Life that was about life and times of being a 911 dispatcher, plus any other public safety professional. We interviewed policemen and firefighters and paramedics and the whole gamut. And we talked a lot about trauma because it is a very present thing in the public safety world. Everybody is being traumatized every day. And so before we really get into this episode, I want you guys to hear what trauma actually means, because a lot of people think that trauma is just a big, nasty, scary event, right? War, abuse, tragic accidents, natural disasters. And yes, all of those things can be really traumatic. But for some people, for some horses, something small could be traumatic. An accumulation of small traumas can make a bigger trauma. A trauma is anything that causes you to question your belief system. We did an episode on the 911 Delta Tethered for Life podcast about post-traumatic growth and how that is actually a thing. So just because we all have trauma and maybe we have some post-traumatic stress doesn't have to mean that we can't grow, we can't end up doing great things, and we can't overcome this trauma. We also need to realize that everybody's reality is based off of their perception, and everyone and every horse's perception is different. Sometimes just feeling unsafe in a moment questions your belief system. And that can be enough to cause a trauma. A lack of control. I find that to be a big source of trauma for many horsewomen, especially those who are high achieving and successful in many other areas of their lives. Feeling like they're out of control on their horse can be traumatizing. Or just simply being overwhelmed, right? Our nervous system can't process all the things at one time. That's kind of how I felt when I got back from North Carolina this week. It's like too many things to do, and I just can't process it. So if we look at trauma from that lens, then it's safe to say that life and trauma leaves its mark on all of us. Humans, horses, nobody goes through life unscathed. And so maybe the better question isn't, have I been traumatized? Or has my horse been traumatized? It's, how do we learn to thrive anyway? And I don't believe that horses or humans are inherently damaged goods. I believe that growth is possible, resilience is possible, thriving is possible. And if we define horses or humans solely by their traumas, we may accidentally be limiting their ability to become something more. And that's why I have kind of this natural dislike for labeling things. Support and safety do matter, but challenge, agency, and growth matter too. They're all important to all of us. One of the first things that I like to teach people is awareness. It's the first seed in my 7 seeds of partnership and the first module or seed in Reconnect, Rebuild, and Ride with Heart, my online course. Because behavior is not identity. Behavior is information. It's information about how someone or something is perceiving their reality in the moment. And this is really the heart of how I work. Not from a trauma lens, not from the dominance lens, but from an awareness lens. My first job isn't to decide why a behavior is happening. My first job and your first job as a good horse person is to notice what is happening. And there's a lot of times in our horse industry that people just don't notice. In fact, one of the things we talked about at Happy Horse Camp was how often we invade a horse's space or push them past their boundaries without even realizing it, and certainly without taking it into consideration. So when you have a behavior, especially one that you deem negative, notice why it's happening before you build a story around it. Have awareness without judgment. A behavior does not define someone's morality or character. It's not a diagnosis of a condition. It's just information. The same is true for horses. I find that horse people tend to get stuck in two main camps. One of them being control through negative assumptions. My horse knows better. My horse hurt me. Negative assumptions often lead to force and escalation. Curiosity disappears. We only work off the mindset of my horse should know. The first question you should ask when you hear yourself say that is, why? Why should my horse know? The other end of the spectrum, in my mind, is projection disguised as kindness. And these are often the people who get told they're being too nice to their horses or they're not demanding enough, right? It's the opposite extreme. This person's thinking, I don't want to hurt their feelings. My horse doesn't like boundary. My horse has some trauma, so I shouldn't ask for this, that, or the other thing. So empathy then becomes projection and kindness becomes avoidance. In that lens, we lose clarity and the horses lose clarity. And it also becomes a dangerous place to be. This is why I teach awareness before techniques. In EMS, the first thing you learn is scene safe. Is the scene safe for you? Because safety comes first. Then you can do your assessment of the patient. And then you do any treatments that you might need. The same progression with horses. Notice what's happening first. Be curious about why it's happening. And sometimes we do need to go with safety first. Sometimes we need to make sure we're positioned safely, that we can have our horse get away from us so they don't accidentally cause us harm. We also need to learn to recognize when our horse is not ready for our question, whether that's to do something online, whether it's to get on the trailer, whether it's for us to get on their back. We need to be aware of whether the horse is ready or not. It's an important safety fact that most people are not taught. Because if you don't feel safe, you can't observe. You can't be aware. And we did some human-to-human demos in the Happy Horse Camp where they were just talking things. But if you are trying to get out of a situation or you're uncomfortable in a situation, you are less aware of what's going on around you. Many people are not very aware of what's going on around them while they're riding or while they're with their horse in general. To a horse, that's very unsettling because horses are aware, acutely aware of their surroundings all of the time. They know when we are only focused on one thing. And if it's them, it makes them feel uncomfortable. I mean, think about when somebody stares at you. If you're out in a public place and somebody's staring at you, or you have a bug on you and your friends like give you that wide-eyed look, what happens? You start to get freaked out, start to question everything. Horses are no different. Your awareness of what's going on is going to depend on your experience level, but it's something that you should keep evolving as you go. So when you first get into it, we need to look at what is the human's experience level? What's their awareness around horses? Do they know what's safe and what's not? Do they know what positions are safe and what and which ones aren't? What is the horse's comfort level in any given environment? What are the risks involved? There isn't one right answer. What we need to be seeking is what creates enough safety for learning to happen. Then we can be curious. And then we can play with theories, which to me is really the fun part. Then we can talk about maybe a human trauma or what we think might be a horsey trauma. We can talk about learning theory and biomechanics and the nervous systems and our relationships with our horses. None of these are wrong things to talk about. They're simply a lens to look through. Awareness helps us know when each one might be useful. And if this sounds like a lot of thinking to you, it kind of is. But when you're dealing with two living beings that both have their own nervous systems, there should be a lot of thought and care put into it. Think about how much thought and care you put into your relationships with other humans. Why awareness is that seed one in Reconnect, Rebuild, and Ride with Heart. It's not awareness with judgment, though, not awareness with criticism, not awareness with certainty for sure. It's awareness with curiosity, humility, experimentation, an open mind, and a loving heart. Because you can't change what you don't notice. You can't understand what you've already decided. So I guess my answer to what trauma lens do I use is the same answer as what horsemanship technique do I use? Any and all of them. Whatever works in the moment. I really don't know if I can give a better answer than that. This may sound hard, but as you learn to read your horse, you will learn that some things are really simple. And by making judgments, making assumptions, being certain that they should know something is actually much more limiting than opening up the possibilities and being curious as to why things are happening. Of course, we have to have a 10-minute experiment to go with this, right? So the next time you're observing your horse, and I love to do this when they're out in a pasture with their buddies, because if you're meeting your horse's needs in that way, you'll get to see how they interact with other horses, and that will tell you a lot about how they are functioning. I think of it just like children. When you notice how young children interact with other young children, it can really tell you a lot about how that child is developing. If you don't have a horse that has buddies, then watch them in their easiest habitat where you think they feel the most relaxed and kind of become a nature documentary narrator. Describe only what you see, not what you think it means, and not what you think you see. So something very simple like my horse is eating grass. My horse is close to the other group of horses. My horse is far away from the other horses. My horse walked towards friend A and friend A moved out of the way, right? Not my friend pushed so-and-so horse out of the way. This is probably going to be a harder exercise than you imagine. It's kind of like meditation because you're going to start it and then you're going to get yourself off on a tangent and you're going to have to pull yourself back. So keep asking yourself, what's happening? Am I telling a story about it? What are three other possibilities? If I made a story, what are three other possibilities that could go with that story? Take a notebook with you, write it down, then notice how many stories did you want to make up in a 10-minute period of time? You might be fascinated to see how many stories, how many judgments, how many assumptions you make about what your horse is doing. You can also do this with fellow humans. It's also a fun experiment. These are the kinds of things that I love showing people how to do and how they can really be important to your growth and your horse's growth. So if this idea of awareness resonates with you, come check out Reconnect, Rebuild, and Ride with Heart. Because before empathy, feel, autonomy, and leadership, we have to learn to notice. And if you've ever wondered if you're noticing what's happening, I have a free awareness workshop available on my website, and it's also inside the Happy Horse and Rider Lab school community. Check it out. See if you notice anything different about your horse next time. Remember, every theory reveals something. Every theory hides something. The horse doesn't need to be right. They don't need me to be right. They need me to stay curious. And maybe as humans, we need to do the same thing for ourselves. All right, horse fiends, thanks for hanging out with us today. If this episode got your gears turning, don't forget to check out Reconnect, Rebuild, and Ride with Heart. The links are in the show notes. It's the program that'll take everything we talked about here and actually help you apply it in real life with your horse. And hey, before you ride off, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a quick rating or review of the show. It helps more riders like you find us and keep these conversations going. All the links you need are waiting in the show notes. Happy riding!